Notice is hereby given that a meeting of the Salem City Council Committee on Government Services, co-post of the Committee of the Whole, will be held Wednesday, April 6, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. for the purpose of discussing moving Sheridan Square and creating a land acknowledgement to read at each meeting via remote participation in accordance with Chapter 20 of Acts of 2021 as amended by Chapter 22 of Acts of 2022. The subcommittee meetings are held to take action on for the purpose of making recommendations to the full council. Individuals may participate remotely in the meeting via a remote participation platform called Zoom. Members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting may access the remote participation meeting through any one of the following ways. Please click the link below to join the webinar, password 573080, or call by phone. Every effort will be made to ensure that public can adequately access the proceedings in real time by technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so on matters not requiring a public hearing, we will post on the City of Salem's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Persons requiring auxiliary aids and services for effective communication, such as sign language interpreter or assistive language device, or print material in digital format, or a reasonable modification in program services, policies, or activities, may contact the City of Salem ADA coordinator at 978-619-5630 as soon as possible and no less than 2 business days before the meeting, program, or event. Councilors present, we have all members of the committee, along with councilors, Councilor President Morcillo, Councilor Prosnewski, Councilor Merkel. We also have Alphonse Wright joining us. And I think that's everybody. Okay, so we can take up, so the 2 matters that are ahead of us are moving of Sheridan Square and creating the land acknowledgement to read at each meeting. We can take up the land acknowledgement first and get Alphonse on his way. I just wanted to cover that very quickly to sort of just give an update to the committee so that we can report that back out to the council, and just depending on what this group decides to do, we could leave that in committee. But I have had 2 people reach out to me since that meeting and just ask if they could be part of a group to work on a land acknowledgement and just sort of start brainstorming that, and then eventually send that off to the Massachusetts Tribal Council. It was Alphonse Wright and Councilor Watson-Felt. So if anybody, I'll leave the floor open for a minute if anybody has anything they'd like to say about that, or we can just move forward on that one. I guess that's under discussion. Yeah, well, I want to thank Mr. Wright and Councilor Watson-Felt. There is no rush right now to get that back in front of the council. We want to make sure that's right, but if we can, theoretically looking at getting something before the end of the year and getting something that's right, if we do decide to move forward with that. And it's just the 2 of them sort of working on that. They'll bring that back to the committee, and then we'll discuss it here. So can I have a motion there? I think the motion would be, depending on what you decide to do, would be to leave it in committee. Councilor Cohen?
I move that we keep this matter in the committee until Mr. Wright and Councilor Watson-Felt bring us specific language.
Second.
So a motion to keep the land acknowledgement in committee until a draft is completed by Councilor Watson-Felt and Alphonse Wright, made by Councilor Cohen, seconded by Councilor Varela. Councilor Varela?
Yes, sorry. No, just we're good.
Councilor Watson-Felt? Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Yes.
And Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that's 5 members voting, 5 in the affirmative. Thank you, Alphonse. Appreciate you jumping on.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Good night. So I'll also note that we have Kim Emmerling joining us, and we will take up the second matter, which is relocating Sheridan Square. So actually, Kim, if you wanted to, I don't know if you're able to give us some background on that. I think we've all received, have you all had a chance to look through the research that Eileen sent out about Sheridan Square And there's some additional information I sent out around the city council did vote in, I believe it was July of last year, I think June or July of last year, I'll note that Councilor Dominguez is joining us right now. We voted last year to name the corner of Tremont and Grove Street as Milcart Square after Sergeant Walter Milcart's. So that's where sort of the question here is, I guess, right now that we're looking at. So Kim, if you want to sort of just cover some background on your end.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Good evening, everyone. So as Councilman Hepworth just mentioned, Milcart Square, Sheridan Square was actually where we just placed Milcart Square. And then further research of Sheridan Square at the time, it reflected his family being from down near Wisteria Street, where there was no square. So that was taken down and an order was asked to, move it to Wisteria Street. Since then, Eileen, our city clerk, has found further information that actually has him closer to Grove Street there, but not quite all the way up on the top of the hill there. And it's closer down to the corner of Tremont Street, Mason. And what she had discovered was his family was raised right there at about 10 in what used to be called Myrtle Street or Myrtle Avenue, and that later became Tremont Street. So now we're just asking, the petition is just to simply move the square instead of over to Wisteria Street, where his family had later moved. The square was actually dedicated in 1926. By then, his family is living over in Wisteria Street. And just simply move it to the corner of what is now Tremont
And Sylvan.
I don't have the, what is
It's,
it?
Tremont and Sylvan Street.
Tremont and Sylvan Street, which is closer to almost exactly where he was raised before he went off to World War I. There it is. So that's all I had, subject to your questions.
Okay, that's I think that makes sense. Does anyone have any questions for Kim about this situation? I think it's just important to also acknowledge Lieutenant Sheridan, who was a Salem native, joined the Army just before World War I, and about 2 months after landing in Europe, was killed in action. Just make sure we don't lose sight of that in this process. Councilor,
very good. Thank you.
Councilor Prosnewski.
Kevin, did you mean to say Tremont and Mason Street? Because you said Tremont and Sylvan. So I'm guessing it should be Tremont and Mason, correct?
Oh, no, actually, it's Tremont, Myrtle Avenue, Myrtle Street ended up becoming Tremont. And he lived
Right.
closer to Tremont and Mason, but this corner is actually now, might have been Myrtle and Sylvan. So that's the corner, Tremont and Sylvan.
Yeah, I'm looking at the house right now, so that's why I was wondering which corner it was gonna be on and which one was gonna get the visibility.
It's number
Okay.
10. I think do you have it up in front of you, Councilor Prosnewski, when
I do. It's right across from that little parking lot from over at Mac Park, right where the crosswalk is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll put it, so it doesn't get hit. We'll put it probably on the Sylvan Street side, but facing out towards the road.
Yeah, that was my next
We'll just
question
have
was
to keep
where you're gonna put it so that it's prominently displayed instead of, tucked away. That's the challenge over there.
Well, I was thinking just to simply put it facing closest to Sylvan Street telephone pole, whatever's right there, and just face it out towards the Tremont Street. But if that doesn't work, I haven't really looked on the other side of the road closely
No.
enough. So,
If you've been down there, Kim, and you like where it's going, then that's fine. That's okay. I was just looking at it from a picture. I wasn't down there physically. That's fine.
right. We'll make sure it gets as much visibility as possible. That's for sure.
Thank you.
I think also, I just wanted to point out also that the city council, I think you all may have seen this also, but the city council voted almost exactly 100 years ago to put it in that location that it was at right now. So whatever we put forward, we would want to just reference that despite, that we're moving it from that suggested location back to Sylvan Street.
Right.
Councilor President Morsillo.
Thank you. Not being a member of the committee, I do have a question for Mr. Emmerling. I guess my question is on the process involved here. Why exactly was one moved before it went through the council to move it? You removed the one square, I guess, sign to put up another one. So I guess that's my question here. Even though you found that it maybe possibly should have gone in another location, it feels like the cart went before the horse here. So just wondering what the process is.
Well, you're absolutely right. The cart did go before the horse, and I was out of line for taking that down prior to council approval. But I will say that Mavkar's family had a lot of people coming in for a reunion right around the same time. So and it was during the summer, so the council didn't really meet as often as they normally did. But I was totally out of line on that, and that was certainly on me to do that without prior council approval.
Was it, just a follow up here. Did the council approve it before you put it up for the family coming in?
Oh, yes, that was approved. Right. It's just that I didn't, in that council action, I didn't include moving the other sign. If I recall correctly, I didn't include that in there.
Okay. So I hope if this happens again, we follow a better process so that we don't have to clean it up a couple of years later.
Well, you're right, of course. And it's not really a better process, it's the process that I didn't follow. So I will certainly follow the process.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Presnewski, do you have your hand up still, or is that just from previously?
I'm sorry, that was from previously. I'll lower it. Sorry, thank you.
Any other questions for Kim, or any other just statements or questions? Well, I guess on my end, I think that clearly the process wasn't done perfectly here, but I think there is a good solution to where we can get something that makes sense for both of these veterans that we're trying to honor. And I think even just having it closer to where he actually grew up, I think is kind of nice to see how on that, because that house is on the corner there. It's not just on that street. It's 10 Tremont is on that corner there. I believe it's the same home that he grew up in. So I think it'd be nice to see that sign outside that house if it's the will of the committee and the will of the council. So there's no more questions, I guess. In there. And I guess if there were a motion, then it would be to we would be referencing the 1921 council order, and we'd be saying something to the effect, if you chose to, to the effect of moving it from the council's selected location in 1921 at Tremont and Grove back to Tremont and Sylvan. Councilor Cohen.
So moved.
So motion moves Sheridan Square. (1921). We have a motion from Councilor Cohen to move Sheridan Square from its 1921 ordered location at Tremont and Grove back to Tremont and Sylvan. Councilor Morsillo.
Thank you. Again, not being a member of the committee, as long as we have Mr. Emmerling here, could you tell us what your process is for deciding which intersection to put these, I don't know what you would call them, naming the squares. Can you just kind of go through that process, how you choose which intersection?
Absolutely. So when I first started this job, of course, I inherited all those squares, and I guess at the time, my assumption was that they were all named after men or women that were killed in action. I learned pretty early on that that wasn't the case. And we have since modified that with council approval to how that naming process goes. And where it goes is typically wherever that person was raised and closest to the intersection where they live. That's always been, and again, I didn't know at the time, but I kind of assumed that all those were already posted where those veterans had lived. So it's just to get it as close to their home as possible, and get it through the Salem Veterans Council, and then of course through the city.
If you look at, just real quick, sorry, just to jump in there. If you look at the way Tremont Street is laid out, it was laid out just, I think, a few years prior to the Sheridan family moving to that location. So it may be that was the closest intersection moving forward at that point. Councilor Marcelo, do you have any further questions?
Yeah, so just to follow up. So if the square closest is already named, do you then look for the next closest one, or like, so how does that work?
Well, that's exactly right. We just put it as closely as possible to there. And actually, if you look in some on the map and some of the other named squares, there's some that are almost directly across from each other because those people came from the same area. So.
Okay. And so did I also understand you to say that the squares are only named for those who are killed in action?
Well, that's what my assumption was when I first started this job, and then I found out that wasn't necessarily the case. Some are just named for, they were veterans, of course, but then they got named later on because they might have been a bigger name in the city or a big advocate for veterans or a councilman or something like that. So now the process is it goes through the Veterans Council to vote on it, and it's usually, it's certainly for Medal of Honor recipients, Purple Heart recipients, and other the highest acts of valor, Silver Star recipients, stuff like that.
Okay. And how many women do you have?
Currently, we have one. Larkin Square, named after Catherine Larkin, was killed in World War II, down at the intersection of Memorial and Larkin Lane.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Varela, we do have a motion on the table still at this point. But Councilor Varela, we're still under discussion.
Thank you, Chair Hepworth. First off, thank you, Mr. Emerling, for your expertise and coming here tonight, and I would like to second the motion. Thank you.
Any further discussion? We have a motion from Councilor Cohen to move Sheridan Square from its 1921 ordered location at Tremont and Grove to Tremont and Sylvan, seconded by Councilor Varela. Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Watson-Felt?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Those 5 members voted, 5 in the affirmative. To send to council with a recommendation to move that. Anything else before we wrap it up? Thank you, Kim. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate everything you do for our veterans.
Thank you very much. It's my favorite job in the world, and I hope to see everybody on Saturday, the first muster.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Good night.
One more motion. Councilor Varela.
Motion to adjourn.
Councilor Varela motions to adjourn. Councilor Varela.
Yes.
Councilor Cohen.
Yes.
Councilor Watson-Felt.
Yes.
Councilor McLean.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.